The Ten Commandments are some of the most important scriptures in Jewish and Christian tradition. In fact, they're viewed by many as a baseline for morality within Jewish and Christian traditions, and many consider them to be a baseline for morality within our secular legal codes as well. For that reason, there have been times in the history of this country when it was very common to see the Ten Commandments prominently displayed at courthouses and city halls. These displays of the Ten Commandments have been challenged in our legal system many, many times, but in 2005, the Supreme Court decided that having a display of the Ten Commandments at a courthouse was not a violation of the Establishment Clause because the Ten Commandments had historical and cultural significance in addition to religious significance. So they have a proud history as a part of our culture and as a part of our faith tradition, but it's important for us to remember that the Ten Commandments are more than just secular wisdom or wise legal codes, things that most people can agree upon. The Ten Commandments come to us as part of Scripture, and they come to us as part of God's covenant with the people of Israel. If we look to the book of Exodus, chapter 20, verses 1 and 2, we find that the prologue to the Ten Commandments, really beginning in verse 2 and going over into the first commandment, which is verse 3, they show us that the commandments are given by God to God's people as a part of an ongoing relationship. Okay, so if we look at verse 2, it says, I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. Verse 2 sets the stage by telling us that these commands come as a part of a larger relationship between God and the people of God. The people of God were suffering as slaves in Egypt, and this particular God led these particular people from slavery to freedom through the waters of the Red Sea. So the Ten Commandments come to the people of Israel as a part of this relationship where God is saying to them, I will be your God and you will be my people. And as a part of that relationship, you are to have no other gods before me. As a part of that relationship, you are to honor your father and mother. So the Ten Commandments are part of this ongoing relationship. And that's part of why they are so important to the identity of Jewish and Christian people. The Ten Commandments have often been an important part of educating Christians in who they are and educating Christians in the nature of the God that we love and worship. In years past, it's been very common for Christians growing up, for students, children to memorize the Ten Commandments as a part of their Christian education. In fact, the Ten Commandments used to be used for memorization and used in worship in a way that is now more common for the Apostles' Creed for us today. We say the Creed often in worship. Some of our curriculum for children and our curriculum for confirmation is based around the Apostles' Creed. And that's kind of how the Ten Commandments used to function in the past. It's great for us to try to memorize the Ten Commandments and try to internalize them as Scripture. It's always good to memorize Scripture. But it's also important for us to remember that the Ten Commandments need interpretation. They need discussion and discernment. Memorizing the Ten Commandments is a great start, but we still have to figure out what they mean and how they apply to our life today. For example, the fifth commandment comes to us in Exodus chapter 20, verse 12. That's the command to honor father and mother. Now, it's great for us to memorize that command and be familiar with the idea that God desires for us to honor our father and mother, but what does honor really mean? What does it mean to honor father and mother? Does that mean that we can never disagree with them? Does it mean that we can never disobey them? Does it mean that we can never get into an argument with them? Or maybe, does the command to honor father and mother, does it have an age limit? Is that something we're supposed to do when we're children, but when we grow up we don't have to? Or does it apply mainly to adults taking care of older parents? As you can see, there are a lot of questions that come up when we try to interpret the Ten Commandments. My point is this: the Ten Commandments are very important, but not always obvious. So I do want to encourage you to try to memorize the Ten Commandments. But after you do that, I hope you'll find someone in your church or in your community, maybe in your family, and you'll ask them how they interpret and understand the Ten Commandments. What do they think it means to honor father and mother? How do they honor the Sabbath? How do we resist idols in our contemporary culture? I hope you'll take some time to memorize these commandments, but also discuss them with someone else.